Hey, y'all. Thanks for joining us for the continuation of I'm a Survivor. So, how'd you work through that? Like your work life balance through chemo and, having to go in?
So I don't think I ever had a thought of I'm not gonna work through this. Um,
You thought you were going to be able to handle it, not have to take,
I felt like I didn't have a choice because I was the only one working.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like I didn't really have a choice. And also, I didn't want to be in the household all this time going through all of this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, work was my escape. So I needed to still have that escape. So I knew I was going to work through it. So what I did was we planned the chemo for like a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
On infusion day, which was my Wednesdays, I basically worked from the infusion center. So like I had my laptop, logged in for work, like nothing was happening. And then I was off that Thursday and Friday to recoup.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had the weekend to even further recoup because it did drain me a little bit. So then that Monday, I was just getting back to quote unquote normal. So I can kind of fake it through, by then.
Yeah.
And it was like every 2 weeks. The big ones were every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the weekly ones,
Mm-hmm.
I would just work from home as much as I could.
Gotcha.
And then on those days where I just was too weak or too sick, I would just not work.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have intermittent FMLA or whatever it's called to cover those days.
But you were hospitalized for a minute.
Yes. Unfortunately, so I was diabetic before, but it was medicine I was taking on metformin, like the basic
Mm-hmm.
diabetes medicine. And so one of the things with chemotherapy is you can continue your therapy or your sessions as long as your blood work was okay. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they tested was your A1C and what was
your glucose.
Glucose.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was like maybe like the third big one.
Mm-hmm.
I went and got my blood work done, and it was like, oh no, ma'am, you need to go to the emergency room right now. My blood sugar was unmeasurable. Mm-hmm. That's how high it was, and I had went into ketoacidosis.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to be hospitalized. And in that, like, I was thinking, so I can't get my treatment.
Yep.
I can't get my. So we off playing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't get my treatment, and they were like, no,
yeah.
your blood work, we can't do it right now. So we have to postpone until you get that under control.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was put on insulin for the first time, and that was kind of like, okay, I'm going through cancer treatments, and now I'm on insulin.
I gotta stick myself.
And I gotta stick myself.
Mm-hmm.
I already got this port where they stick me, which they put numbing cream on that it does not numb nothing. And the needle that they put it in, it was just like it was painful. But I was like, okay, now I got to do this. But again, you put your big girl drawers on and you do what you got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the work thing though was, I got to work. I got to do this. Mm-hmm. Number one, when you go on continuous leave, you don't get 100% pay.
That's your pay.
And again, I was supporting the household, so I needed 100% pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I used PTO time. Thankfully, I used to roll over a lot of PTO time, so I had like extra.
Well, good for you. They roll it over.
Yeah. But if I didn't have that, then I probably would have to have gone without pay for some period of time. But working, it was okay until I started to, I guess, the first session, I got nauseated and I kept expecting this uncontrollable vomiting, like, because again, this picture in my head of what cancer is. Mm-hmm. So I kept expecting, I'm going to be sick, mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
whatever. But I was just nauseated, extremely thirsty, extremely fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
But I can push through it if I
Mm-hmm.
had to. And they gave me like every medicine that they could think of that I would need. I had it at my fingertips. So if I was feeling extra nauseated, I had the nausea pill. If I felt extra pain, I had the pain pill. Like it was a lot of medicine that they gave me for the what ifs, right?
Well, that's good.
Right. And then working, I thought I was going to be able to kind of stay under the radar until everything started hitting, and it was getting harder and harder for me to mask it. So then I had to tell people at work. So then when I told my boss first, and then he was like, okay, it's between me and you until you're ready to tell other people. And then I told a couple of my peers, and so they would, kind of watch out for me and stuff like that.
Just in case
something happened. And then I had to tell my team. And then when I told my team, they were so supportive, and everybody was like very concerned about it. And they were like, whatever you need us to do, boss, we got it, whatever.
Yeah.
So they were very supportive, which I appreciated.
Well, that's good. That's good. So as far as support, so I know, of course, we were there for you, but outside of that, I know that you also participated in a support group through the hospital system that you were
I did.
in.
I did. And they were very helpful because these were all women who had already gone through the process for, many years. Some of them had been done with their treatment for 10 plus years, but they found support in, helping others and stuff like that. And a lot of them had the double mastectomy done. So, they were like, really supportive of that. And I remember you came with me one session, and I think that's when I really lost it. Lost it because I was trying to say something, and I could not remember what the word was of what I was trying to explain, to the point where I got very emotional because I was like, why can't I remember this name? I know this word.
Well, that's part of it, with the chemo and stuff. And people, they have the expectations that they have with chemo or when they're going through cancer treatment is the visible stuff, like I'm going to lose my hair. I'll feel nauseous. I'll feel sick to my stomach. I might, look a little pale or, look sickly, but they don't think about or, consider the other symptoms that kind of come along with this, this chemical being put in your body to resolve this cancer or this foreign, tissue or whatnot. So, in addition to the hair loss, because I remember when you started losing your hair, you're like, yeah. And I mean, you tried to prepare
I did.
by, cutting your hair shorter, but still, losing the eyebrows, losing the eyelashes and the hair on your legs.
And you know what? Honestly, I never thought about I was going to lose hair all over my body. I don't know. I thought it was going to be just the hair on my head. And I was just like, wait a minute. My eyebrows are looking very thin. And then I noticed like my eyelashes were falling out. I kept having these lashes in my eye. And I was like, what is going on? And then it was like, you're losing all of your hair. And I remember in the shower and just looking down at the drain, and the hair was just falling. And this was early. Like the hair falling thing did not wait. It was like
immediately.
My first session, it was before the 2 weeks of the next session to be done, my hair started falling. And what people don't tell you or don't know unless they experience is that the hair falling, especially hair on your head, it's not just, it's just not there no more. It's a process of it dying. And in that process, there's pain. It hurt to have this hair on my head and it was falling or it was dying. It hurt like I was very sensitive to it, and it was horrible to the point where I was like, I need to shave it. I just need to shave it off because I had a small pixie. I had a short pixie, but I was like, this I can't.
Yeah.
So I had patches that were bald, and I remember I had asked my then husband to do it, and he was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. So I had to call you, and you were like, yeah, let's do it. And so I came over, and you gave me the little buzz cut, and then I think I cried some more, and then I was like, okay. But I remember when I had to, because I was, I was in management at the time. I was early into management, so maybe like 2-3 years I had been a manager, but business casual was our dress code and going into the office. And so I was big on makeup because like, I'm a manager, right? So I needed to always look, put together. And I remember when I realized my makeup was no longer my shade, and we had to go to, I think we went to Ulta, and I had to get somebody to professionally match my makeup for my quote unquote new face or new complexion, because it was much darker than what I was before. Yeah. Which again, people don't tell you that. Yeah. That. It does change. Another thing they didn't tell me about was because of all these chemicals that they put into your body to kill the cancer, other things are being killed as well. And one of the things was the fingernail beds, the beds of my nails. I was always a what do you call it? Not well, yeah, I was up on my pedicures, but I always had acrylic nails. American style was my thing, square round. And then, I was like, I can't do the nails. Yeah. So I was like, oh Lord. And then I noticed when they started turning black. That was hard going to work through that because everybody saw it. And that was another reason why I kind of felt like I needed to tell people, because it was no longer, my complexion was changing. The steroids had me puffed up. So I had looked different. So I had to tell people because people started looking at me. And then all of a sudden I went from somebody who would never wear a wig to somebody wearing a wig. And it was obvious that it was a wig, but it wasn't like a 32-inch wet and wavy. You know what I'm saying? It was maybe like a 12, 18-inch to my shoulder type bob, but people still noticed it. And then when my nails started changing, I remember I would not want people to come into my office because they would see my nails. And then I'm like, oh Lord, now I got to explain, X, Y, and Z. But yeah, that was one thing I did not know, that my nails would basically almost fall off and they would stink.
Oh, really?
Because underneath it was horrible. They would smell, and my OCD kicks in, and I'm like constantly washing my hand, but I got to be very careful because I don't want the nail to fall off and stuff. Unfortunately, I did lose a toenail. I did lose a toenail, but that was my foot, so I was like, I can cover that. I just don't wear no open toe shoes, which was a little difficult, but I was like, okay, I'm just not gonna do that. But
so in addition to the chemo brain, and for those of you who do not know what chemo brain is, let me read the definition here. So chemo brain is a cognitive change that includes problems with memory, concentration, and how a person can think. These changes are also sometimes called, once again, chemo brain because they were originally thought to be due to chemotherapy. It's not a thought. It is from chemotherapy, from the different types of chemicals that they inject in to help kill the cancer. It also can affect the neurological functioning of a human being. So, and that goes with any type of cancer treatment when they're using those higher doses of chemo. So with the chemo brain, how were you able to function at work? Did you start to find it difficult to start remembering things, or, presenting, because you're in leadership?
Yes, it was very difficult. That's when I'm always been a list person, like I always write lists, but during the chemo brain, I saw that my list had to be more detailed, so that I remember things that I needed to say. That's also when I started interrupting people, because I knew I was going to forget what I wanted to say. So then I had to interject, and then people think that it's because I'm rude, and it's not. It's just because I knew I was going to forget things. I needed to interject to go ahead and put it in. Otherwise, I would have to write down everything that I want to say and then read it back to somebody, because that's just how it is. Chemo brain. I've been done with my treatments for almost 10 years, and I still suffer from what I think is chemo brain. I still forget things, or I still have to write a lot of stuff down just because I just don't remember it. And then I
Well,
see
you are about to be 50.
that also plays a don't help it. It really don't help it. But yeah, so I do still suffer from that, where I'm like, what is that word? I know this word, and then I'm like, forget about it. And then sometimes it's frustrating because I can be in a meeting, presenting, training, or doing anything, and then I'm like stuck because I don't remember the word. And so then I just make people laugh, and then just forget about it. We just move on to something else. But yeah, it still does happen. Not as often as as it did during therapy, but it still happens. So I guess that's something that, it just didn't want to leave me after the treatment. Like lymphedema. So
so that's something else. Well, I'm sure that that's something that the physicians cover when they're talking about, having to remove lymph nodes and treatment or whatnot. But I think a lot of people don't understand the extent that it can go. Once it starts to flare up, how bad it can get, and how serious it can be. If you end up having a cut or burn in that particular area.
It's noticeable. I remember, as I was going through treatments, my hand would swell a little bit. But then after the treatment was when it fully kind of hit, and my entire left arm would swell. It's considerably bigger than the other arm. It's also heavy. So my shoulder hurts when I do have a quote unquote flare up, I guess, because I either have a skin tear because it's so swollen, or I accidentally burn myself. Then it's even more pronounced, and I have to wear the sleeve to kind of keep everything compressed. I had to do therapy. My sleeve is custom made because my arm is so big. Then I had to do therapy to show me how to do the exercises to help the drainage. I think I had one lymphatic massage, and that wasn't therapy.
No, it's not. It's not. It's painful.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. No, it's painful. Not. It's not. Yeah, it's painful because they trying to move stuff that. Yeah, and this arm is, because it's so swollen, it's more sensitive. So pushing, the pulling and pushing and stuff, that definitely does hurt.
So for those of you who may not be familiar with lymphedema is a swelling of tissue because of an impaired lymphatic system. So because lymph nodes are removed or damaged, the flow of lymphatic fluid doesn't drain properly. With those massages, what they do is try to help the fluid kind of go back or drain properly where it's supposed to go. Same thing is the purpose of the compression sleeve, is to help reduce that fluid and make sure that the fluid flows. So very common when women have to have lymph nodes removed, or if the lymph nodes are included or affected by a breast cancer or anything like that. So, so in addition to the discolored nails and the hair loss, let's talk about fatigue.
Oh my goodness. I have never, and my mom could attest to this, I've never been a nap person. Like, in the little kindergarten, first grade where the kids take naps.
When you bring your mat.
Right. They would constantly say she did not take a nap. She did not go to sleep at all. I've never been a nap person until cancer reared its ugly face. And when I say I was a religious nap person. So remember, I worked through the entire process, right? But those days that I did go into the office to work, yeah, I would pull my car from my parking spot to the back under a tree, set my phone timer, and I would immediately go to sleep. I took several naps throughout the day. Chemotherapy was very draining, so I did have some fatigue with the chemo, but radiation zapped every ounce of energy from me. I could not. It was hard to function through radiation. I don't know what is in those waves or whatever. But they took every ounce of energy that I had, and I was going to radiation 5 days a week, every day, Monday through Friday. And when I say I could barely get home without falling asleep, it was horrible. Radiation
I remember those
was
days
horrible.
after you were just out.
It was like I couldn't even and with the chemotherapy, because some of the pre-drugs that they give you before you get to the real chemotherapy drugs, the Benadryl, that would
Of course
leave you drowsy. But it was nothing compared to this radiation fatigue. It was horrible. I could barely stay awake for like 2-3 hours. And then there were the burns, right?
That was after radiation?
Yes. So the radiation, in addition to draining all of my draining all my energy, I did get some radiation burns.
How many treatment sessions did you have to do for radiation?
66.
Oh my gosh.
66.
So how often
sessions.
was it done? Was it weekly?
It was daily, Monday through Friday.
Oh my.
For 6 weeks.
Gosh. So you ended up having burns, and it was pretty much at the site of the therapy.
Correct. So on my left breast, under my left arm, where the lymphedema, the lymph nodes were. Yeah. So it was painful. I guess it could be compared to a very harsh sunburn. So it was painful to the air. It was painful. Clothes,
anything that touched
god awful bra, anything that touched it was very painful. So I had to use a lot of sunscreen, a lot of what it was called.
Was it the aloe?
Yes, aloe. Yes, to cool it or to kind of get it to a bearable point.
Gosh,
it peeled. Yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible. A lot of people, again, when you think of cancer, you think chemo is going to be the worst. Chemo was bad. Don't get me wrong. It was horrible. However, radiation was even worse.
It's almost like you already down, right? And then radiation come and just kick you.
There's no break, because Monday. The only break you had the only break I had was from Friday to Monday. But Monday, I zapped all my energy that I had accumulated over the weekend, and then Tuesday I got to go again, and then Wednesday, like, it was horrible. And
how
I remember,
long were the sessions? Were they like long?
No,
time you were in
10
there?
minutes maybe.
Oh, really?
Very quick. The first couple of ones, because when they do the measuring, those were longer because they had to get it right. They have to be in a position right, and because it was on my left side, my left breast area, they wanted to make sure it was not impacting my heart.
Understood.
Which I completely appreciate. So it took a lot of measuring and, I guess positioning before I even had my first one. Just because they wanted to make sure it was right. And then you have to lay in this position. You have to be very still. And then it was 10 minutes. Go back, put your clothes on, and then drive home. And my drive was maybe 10 minutes, but when I say I barely made it, I barely made it.
Yeah, I think your appetite had something to do with it as well. Yeah, because you weren't eating. I know with the chemo, it changed the taste of
everything.
of your food. So you were not eating. I remember mashed potatoes. What else? Like grits or, just anything
it was
bland.
Yeah. Meat could not be cooked in my presence. The smell was just too unbearable. That's one of the things that you don't know about the chemotherapy process, the taste buds. And again, it made sense when I thought about chemo kills everything, right? My taste buds changed. I remember I wanted water, just water. I was thirsty. And everything he brought me was metallic tasting, like acid battery. Like I don't even know how to explain. It was just, I couldn't drink it until I found the one that I could drink. And I was like, just bring me that. And then I've always been a room temperature girl, water person. No, ma'am. my post chemo body says it needs to be ice cold. I mean, ice cold. I walk around with these stainless steel bottles because it has to be ice cold or I cannot drink it. I had a thing in my mouth, like it was horrible. It was painful.
Yeah, that coating.
Yeah, I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to drink. It was horrible. But still, if I had to compare chemo and radiation, I would still say radiation was the worst.
Tune in next time for the continuation of I'm a Survivor.